Rohan Jawali, welcome to the Preconstruction Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. You're on the West Coast, so thanks for getting up early and making yourself available.
Not a problem. All our construction guys, we start early. That's the
That's
motto,
right.
right?
Yeah, you probably have half a day's work done now at this stage, have you?
Pretty much. It's super productive in the mornings.
That's it. No, I'm the same. I get all my work done early in the mornings. Well, listen, let's jump straight into it because your background is fascinating. Thank you for reaching out to us. Obviously, you saw a bit of content online, put yourself forward, which I always like because there's not enough people that are putting themselves forward, especially in critical positions like yourself, what you're doing over at Hensel Phelps. So the more obviously you can help the audience, the faster we can move forward with anything. So just before we crack into the meaty parts, give us an idea of your career. 12 years, 7 months with Hensel Phelps. What's it been like?
It's been amazing. I'll tell you that. Like you said, I've been with Hensel Phelps for over 12 years, and I worked pretty much through all the market sectors, different types of building, different types of complexities on the project. I started back in 2009 on a GSA project here in San Diego, the Federal Courthouse, as a BIM coordinator. I was one of the first BIM coordinator hires for Hensel Phelps back in time, and that's where this whole BIM movement started, right? Once we finished the BIM coordination, I essentially moved on to a traditional path. Helped out in the office, helped out in the field, and then a couple years in, I essentially transitioned over to our regional role, helping out with a lot of procurements, marketing efforts, and VDC activities across the board. One of the things that we did back at Courthouse was the iPad had recently launched. So I ended up going out and bought the iPad for my personal expense. And then we ended up convincing our team that, hey, this is the way to go. And we ended up scaling up from there regionally, right? Vela Systems was pretty hot back then. So there was a lot of success on using those devices. But through marketing, I worked on a lot of procurements in the region, across the nation, actually. And then came back to operations on a hospital job here in San Diego, a giant healthcare medical center in central San Diego. And that was an amazing experience for me as well. I spent about 3 years working on Oshport Submittal, which now is HKI. Pretty innovative team, pretty big team, used BIM really heavily across the board. And that's where the whole moment of, the BIM started on my mind, like, let's go back to BIM and VDC. And I transitioned back into VDC role. And past year or so, I've been working as, director of innovation as a side work with Hensel Phelps as well.
Brilliant. And if just drag you back, and this is what I love about the podcast. I just pivot and just kind of, I hear something, I go, let's dive into that one. The healthcare project, 3 years. I mean, that to be able to sit on a project like that as a BIM guy, a VDC guy, running through it for 3 years, there must have been huge lessons learned in that. What was the big takeaway?
It was fantastic experience. The biggest takeaway was, you have to have a good team around you as well. You have to know good people. You have to build relationships, and you have to plan. At the end of the day, you think about construction; it's an organized chaos. You're, becoming a master of organizing chaos as you spend day in day out. On the project, there were so many different models. There were so many updates happening on a daily basis, new design changes. So really, it took me a while, at least a month, to get in and set myself and understand what's happening. And once I got my bearings together and started talking to people, it really came together. But if I were to take a takeaway, it's about people. At the end of the day, having relationships matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned there, just speaking to people, communication is vital so that everyone understands, because it's impossible to get everyone on the same page and the same level of understanding, because we've all got different backgrounds. Somebody's coming at it from a VDC background, someone's coming at it procurement, estimating, pre-construction, operations side, and everyone's got that little bit of nugget of knowledge that'll help everyone else.
Absolutely. It was, back in time, we could get together in person too, right? We had our BIM team together, a huge BIM team on site, where our owners and owners reps and design team and engineers and our team together in one office. And that was a huge benefit for us, because we could literally walk to people and have a conversation about, hey, we are seeing this issue. How do we go about it? and go from there. But having people around you was huge help. And for me, someone like me was new in that role, new on a particular project type. It was even better because I could learn at a faster pace. I was drinking from the pyros, but I was at the same time learning at a pretty high rate, if I could say
Brilliant.
that.
And Rohan, I love that. I think the whole idea of like throwing someone into like a smaller project, you just put them into a large project. I mean, that's how you learn. That's the only way to learn. And you learn from other people. And just on that, was that done 3D, 4D?
We did 3D, 4D, and 5D as well, and some capacity 60. How people define 60 is really different, but kind of some asset transfer as well.
Brilliant, love it. So lots of learnings. Then you just didn't stick with one, yeah.
Absolutely, and before that, I mean, my focus more was about 3D and 4D, but I ended up getting into those different domains as well and learning from, like I said, fireworks on
Brilliant.
the fly.
Good. Well, I mean, obviously it's now helped you to where you're at. I would imagine that was a pivotal moment in your career.
Absolutely. I mean, being on a project of such complexity with such a good team and good people helped me a lot. And now it's the way I look at it is, the game slows down for you, the business slows down for you as you grow older in your career. And once you go through those, bigger projects with, high, velocity teams, next time you start a project, you know what to expect, you know how to tackle the situations, you know where to start and get started from that point. And it becomes more organized and more planned as you go. Because again, processes, there are a bunch of processes, bunch of tools, there's chaos, but then having the experience to manage upfront and see, visually understand what's coming helps you manage the chaos quite phenomenally well.
Yeah, and that comes to my next question, is that the importance, you mentioned it before, the importance of planning and the importance of pre-construction. How important is that? Because I see a huge shift in companies focusing on that. I mean, traditional construction is just get the drawings from the architect, put a price on it, and we'll build it when we get the operations. But that's completely changing. How have you seen it evolve throughout your career?
I think pre-construction is getting more and more predominant, right? I mean, everybody is building buildings virtually or, on computers first before we, set foot on the ground. And by that, what I mean is you're essentially doing pretty much everything that you do in the field before you actually break the ground, right? And BIM is becoming a huge part of it by default because it accelerates the process for us. It makes it really better and collaborative across the board. And really, I mean, like I mentioned, we're producing fabrication level models before we, send drawings to permit. And that actually is a really, really intense process in a grand scheme of things, because you really have to have a good plan as a team to end up at that position to submit that level of details to permit. That involves, quick decision making, of course, which is number one. Collaboration at a grand scheme of things, transparency across the board as a team, and then trust. And high functioning team always have those components, regardless between owners, between engineers and architects and contractors.
Yeah, brilliant. And you mentioned the almost perfect digital fabrication. I mean, how close are we to getting to that? Where we're building models that are almost exactly what we want in 5D, and we'll go into 6D in a little bit.
I think we are closer than ever because the models are getting detailed across the board. I mean, at least in California, I've seen trades, produce such a high level of detail in their models. It's amazing. Can you model that in the past 10 years? Like 10 years ago, we couldn't have imagined that, but now you do. So, and a lot of trades are fabricating off the model as well as a default, service. So I think from prefab perspective, I feel like we are getting pretty close as well, because now you're developing model and you're creating assemblies in the model as well that will translate into assemblies downstream as well.
Brilliant. And is this working with the architects? You mentioned the subcontractors are doing their bit in relation to the model. Is the architect getting involved? Are they getting involved? Is the architect building models? Are they building information that you can use?
Yes, so the design team is hands-on, at least on healthcare jobs that I worked on in the BIM process from the get-go. What we are starting to do is involve trade partners, subcontractors very, very early in the process. So they're actually working hand in hand with the engineers. Oftentimes, they're actually working the same model, which is again requires a lot of trust, because now you have another trade working in designer's model. How is that going to work, right? Because we're trying to submit those drawings to the permits. But again, it's a lot of planning upfront. It's a lot of trust building exercises to make sure that, hey, the process is there, and we're following the process from day one until we submit.
Brilliant, love it. And you mentioned before, just before we started recording there, the one good thing coming out of COVID and everything that we've gone through, working from home and working remotely, it's been difficult. There's been challenges, but also it's honed down on our process. It's allowed us to get tighter with our process. It's allowed us to get better at working together. Give me an idea of what you saw, especially in Hensel Phelps. How has it improved you guys?
Honestly, you said it right. I mean, the process has just gotten better because now we are collaborating at a really high efficiency. If you think about remote teams, I mean, 5 years ago, if I asked somebody like, can construction companies have remote teams in action, and the answer would have been no or maybe. But now the answer is yes. Why not? Yes, we've done it. So you think from remote perspective, I think the processes and the tools have gotten better in the last 2 years. I mean, someone said it previously, like, sometimes it takes decades to do something. Sometimes it takes a week to happen, a decade, or somewhere along the same line. But the tech has evolved in such a fast rate that it's been amazing, because you look at Microsoft Teams or Zoom and so on. People are getting together across the country to do meetings and talk about issues that we're coming across. We are having field walks with people from New York. So that entire approach has changed.
Brilliant. And what you mentioned there, the tech that has improved so much in relation to BIM VDC, what has made it possible? Like, what is the technology that you are leaning heavily on?
I mean, to think about, the cloud solutions like, BIM 360, for example, and there are, other vendors in the same space as well. They've really allowed us to collaborate pretty efficiently between different trades, different companies. You think about, the process I mentioned before, like, having trade partners and subcontractors in designer's model. I mean, it would have been pretty hard to do 10 years ago, but now it's pretty easy because BIM 360 has changed the game. Or solutions like that are changing the game for us with collaboration. Having tools like that with, coupled up with the collaboration, like remote meeting tools, it's actually helping us accelerate the conversation and dialogue across the board.
Brilliant, love it. And is there any tools that are coming out that's getting you really excited? Any new tools that you're seeing, really, any new functionality of BIM 365?
Autodesk is doing a fantastic job in this space, but again, there are a bunch of VR, AR startups that are doing a phenomenal job as well, allowing us to collaborate in all different worlds. So I think that part of the business is going to get even more exciting as we progress forward.
Yeah. And Rohan, is there any chance of us moving too fast when it comes to BIM? Because BIM's been around for a long time, even in another format previously, but are we moving too fast now? Because we obviously, everyone kind of is always talking about the construction industry. It's moving too slow. It's not being innovative enough. But COVID, I mean, it definitely has expedited a lot of other things within pre-construction estimating. What about BIM and VDC?
I think we are still slow.
Yeah,
we have room to be faster for sure. But if you think about the pace and the collaboration and the adoption in general, it really depends on what region you're in, right? What I've seen is coast to coast is the processes and people are quite advanced, and then everybody else kind of follows them, right? But in a grand scheme of things, I think we'll get more faster. I mean, generative design is coming in. There's a lot of AI coming in, so you'll see the process get much faster, because for OSHPOT, for example, it would take years in the past to go submit the permit drawings, and now we're going less than 2 years, for example, in some cases. So it's again going much faster in the grand scheme of things, and it's only going to get faster.
Brilliant. I love it. I hope you're right. And let's go back to 5D and 6D. Let's tell us how the costs, how detailed these 5D models are, and what improvements can we make with that?
So it's a really subjective topic, right? I mean, 5D has been around for a while, and you think about 5D, it's kind of getting blurred between different processes. For example, a lot of tech companies are coming in with production tracking and progress tracking, and they're showing the earned value and the cost metrics there too. And some people are confusing that with 5D. So what I've started doing in 5D, you break into 5D in two parts. One is 5D cost estimation, which is typically what it should be, and then you have 5D cost verification that happens downstream once you start construction. From 5D cost estimation perspective, I feel like we are there because you think about 5D, you need to really set the process up front where you are setting the expectation with the team on what level of detail you want to model, what objects you're modeling, and what parameters you're associating. Sometimes it becomes really hard to go in a level of detail that you want on certain trade partners because they might have certain things on the back end differently. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So again, from 5D perspective, I think we're pretty close on quantity takeoff level using BIM, but there is still some gap that we need to fill in, and I think tech is going to be helpful to fill that gap, because the way I explain typically is you think about a typical way of estimating, you're starting at a higher level of detail on day one, but from BIM you're starting at 0. The BIM catches up pretty fast, but then you still have that gap between traditional estimating and BIM level of detail, and that gap needs to be filled in with something that doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. That was my next question. What does that look like? Is that historical data? Is that what?
That absolutely is a historical data that can be used to predict the things to fill up the gap. And I know join.build is doing some really good work right now to use the data to help you make decisions, and that product is coming along together really well. And there are other players in that same space that are trying to solve the same problem to help out from the estimating side. But again, it will be a process. It will be a learning curve for everybody to go arrive at a certain point, and I think industry is going to get there at some point pretty quick, sooner than we realize.
Yeah,
I keep on telling 10 years, but I think it's going to happen quite faster than 10 years.
Yeah, I think so as well. You're right. You mentioned Join there. There's quite a few of them that are working on it, and it's almost like it's like a race to the line. Who's going to get there first? Because if you think about it now, and you can kind of guide me on this, if you've got VDC working really hard with it, and you've got the pre-con and estimating side, it almost like you're double handling, like you're doing two things where really one thing should be, or a joint effort should be quicker, faster, less labor intensive.
Absolutely, and I've seen our estimators pick up the BIM part pretty heavily in past few years. Things like Assemble have changed how estimators are consuming information from the BIM side on a day-to-day basis, and the integrations with other partners is proving that pretty quickly too.
Brilliant, good. Yeah, the integrations are going to be crucial. And then 6D modeling, I know we touched on it and you said it's kind of a little bit fuzzy at the moment. What's your idea of 6D modeling?
I mean, it should be basically a digital twin in some capacity, right? But what I've seen is it goes back to a good plan from day one. Having 6D handover in mind on day one is critically important to really actually make it happen. We have had some projects where we have delivered Kobe data set towards the end. The first one I tried, I had to basically rush into creating that data set towards the end because we didn't plan for it. Now we are getting information from all the trade partners to fill into that spreadsheet and fill into an export, export data from the model and fill up the spreadsheet again and again to deliver to the client. But then next time it got easier because we could plan from day one. I think Kobe is, of course, a critical piece of 6D puzzle. It's going to help us deliver that information down the line. But again, there are good products coming from the market, the startup ecosystem as well, that are going to be game changers in the grand scheme of things, because They're allowing us to build the data set on the go, associating with the PIM, associating us with the trade partners. Having them input the information on the go is going to be huge for us.
Brilliant. What, just out of curiosity, who's working on that, or who's the trade partners, or the products that are doing that?
I mean, from progress tracking perspective, a lot of companies are doing that, right? I mean, I've seen some, even 5D companies try to, hold the data and allow us to add more data to the model as well.
Good. Yeah, that'll be exciting. Very exciting, because it's an ever-changing landscape. So to be able to add to it whenever you need to, that would be nice, and it would keep everyone updated.
Exactly.
Yeah, almost in real time. I like it. I'm excited. Cool. And then what about Hensel Phelps? Without giving away any secrets, what does your tech stack look like, and what are you using right now?
It all depends on the region and the owner we are working with, right? Because some owners have their own systems that they want us to use, but you typically think about BIM in general. We are, of course, Autodesk heavy right now. We are also using a lot of Tekla and innate software to help us through model coordinations. But yeah, the healthcare customers that I'm working on here in Southern California side, we are pretty much Autodesk heavy on BIM side.
Good.
But then you also have things like Assemble for 5D, which is of course an Autodesk product. Stuff like you have Sage on the other side as well. That's helping us do estimating and do data integrations as well.
Good. Yeah, it's getting the full suite of something to be able to talk to one another is going to be quite difficult as well. But as you say, the integrations and the plugins are getting much bigger. But something exciting that you mentioned as well is the innovations team that Hensel Phelps are putting together. I know that you're a big part of that. How will that help streamline technology and decisions within technology?
You think about the innovation side and the tech movement in the industry in past few years. The startup scene is phenomenal. It's dynamic right now. There are a lot of companies that are trying to emerge from stealth mode and really start building the product. And the entrepreneurs that are trying to build the product, sometimes they are from the industry, and most of the time they're not from the industry. So in my opinion, the innovation teams is a good thing that's happening in the industry right now, because that's going to help the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, outside looking in as well as inside looking out. I mean, the industry has a lot of innovators and entrepreneurs within the industry, and for them to really go out, try new things on their projects, because you think about a project for a construction company, it's almost like a company or a startup within the company, right? And a lot of projects are starting, as they start, they're trying new products, new software, new tools, new processes to deliver things better. So from both sides, the innovation groups are really acting as a catalyst. They're helping out the ecosystem externally to achieve that product market fit, give them the pilots, give them the feedback from actual customers. And internally, we are helping them find the new tools, find the new companies that are actually doing really amazing stuff outside, and bridge that gap where the learnings are passed from each other, if that makes sense. No, that's really high level, but then the innovation team are really, they have to do a lot of groundwork to get there.
Big time, 100%. But I 100% agree. This is the only way that we can get to a space where we can do things faster and we can expedite the pre-construction process. If we talk and share learnings, I mean, there's a big thing about sharing data and stuff now. We will get there, but at the end of the day, everyone should be sharing their wins, their successes, what makes us build schools, houses, hospitals quicker and faster, because there will be I mean, COVID obviously hasn't helped, because there was a lot of delays and a lot of different fluctuating prices. So there's a massive backlog that needs to be looked after, and I think technology can help us with that.
Well, absolutely. Tech has a huge part to play as we move forward in the future, for sure. And a lot of companies are on it right now.
Brilliant, love it, love it. And just San Diego, obviously California, beautiful part of the world. Tell us a little bit about it. So I know that you may know we relocate a lot of estimators and pre-con folks and VDC folks all over the US. What's San Diego like? What's it like there to live there all year round?
I try pretty hard not to brag about it. It's heavenly. But no, San Diego is a phenomenal place to start the career, start the family, and grow the family at. It's a big city with a small city feeling with a beach.
Good.
That's the way I explain. But surprisingly, the community here in San Diego for our industry is pretty awesome as well. There are smaller groups that are working together, pretty meeting as well. And the startup ecosystem in San Diego is pretty dynamic as well. There are a few companies that came out of San Diego, like Raycon and Fuser. There was another company that Autodesk acquired. I'm kind of losing the space right now, but a few startups are working in the space as well that are based out of San Diego, and there is a lot of talent in the region for sure.
Right.
But it's phenomenal. I can't complain.
What do you do when you're not VDC and BIMing it up?
I'm a hiker. I
Good.
like to go run on the trails for sure. If I'm not hiking or running or spending time with the family, I'm taking pictures. I do a lot of landscape photography, abstract photography, take videos. So that's my hobby. I go on some photography trips around as well if I can find time, but it's getting harder with the kids growing up fast.
Yeah, the kids keep you on your toes, I'm sure. Yeah, good.
24/7. And the generation is just getting smarter and smarter, so they're learning so fast that it's amazing to see the growth.
Yeah, they're learning fast and they're teaching us even more. That's the key. So, and what just one thing I like asking people just before you head on, if you think about your career, and we talked about it before, you're advancing quite fast through the ranks at Hensel Phelps. What do you put that down to? Was there any one specific thing, and what sort of advice would you give a graduate?
I'm going to pass on the same advice I got when I started Hensel Phelps. Again, the fundamentally, it's about people, right? That's rule number one. But number two, that my mentor at Hensel Phelps advised me when I started Hensel Phelps, and he's still my mentor, right? So it's pretty applicable. Is Rohan, don't look at the software or the tools. Think about the process. Always go after the process first. Learn the process, and then go after the tools. And that has helped me phenomenally and tremendously up to this point, where the shiny objects are there, but don't worry about the shiny objects. Understand the concept fundamentally first that allows you to go pick that shiny object really well. So I still stick to that principle.
Rohan, that's great advice. And I know we touched on it earlier, but that's why I think that COVID and everything that happened throughout COVID is probably people are going to look back in 10 or 15 years and pinpoint that time is the time that was probably most important when it comes to innovation within construction. Because any startup to pre-con tech, estimating tech, or even operations tech company that I speak to, they have seen huge amount of growth within that time frame, and since they've come out of that time frame. So I think people are now willing to spend time looking into technology and finding out how you can kind of coordinate and match technology with talent to be able to do everything faster.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you think about it, like I mentioned, right? I mean, I think these 2 years or 3 years, the industry has grown by decades. Typically, our industry is not the one that picks up tech quickly, but now everybody has picked up and touched the tech in some sense or more sense, right? So the adoption is there, the acceptance is there, adoption is there, right? So I feel like we are just going to go much faster as the time comes.
Brilliant. And again, if you have C-suite owners, like these people in senior positions that are willing to kind of obviously hand out a few pounds, because it's not cheap. Innovation's not cheap within technology, but if you see the return on investment long term, you can get there much quicker.
Absolutely, and I saw a pretty interesting stat in Procore's S1 filing last year or a year before is typically average industry tech spend is about 3% to 4% across the board, right? And construction industry spends about 1.5% at the moment. So you think about the gap between other industries and construction industry, there is still a massive opportunity for software companies to come in and help out to create that value. And the spending from the construction company side is only going to grow. And I think that's happening already. People are getting more familiar with the tools and what technology can do for them. and they're seeing the benefit top down for sure. So the executives are buying in and leadership is buying in, and it's real.
Yeah, I can't wait to that 1.5% increases to 3%, because what you're going to find is companies are going to realize they can actually build bigger, better, and safer buildings, and they're also going to be able to build more of them. Because you merge that technology with talent, it's a secret recipe.
Absolutely, and it's only going to get faster, right? I mean, you can do things faster, more efficiently. There's nothing like it.
Brilliant. Well, this has been brilliant, Rohan. Appreciate it. Really, really thank you for your time. Really looking forward to following you on at Hensel Phelps, especially the innovations team. Looking forward to you contributing to that. Is there anywhere in particular that anybody listening or anybody wants you asked you a question following up from this podcast? Where's the best place to get you?
LinkedIn or Twitter would be the best ones. R Jawali is my handle. So
brilliant. What I'll do, I'll get that handle off you and I'll put it on the notes below for anyone listening.
Sure, absolutely.
Rohan, have a great week, and we'll speak to you again soon.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.